Welcome in, guys. We are going to be talking about tier 2 today. A lot of you guys have been asking me to do a tier list, just talk more about tier 2. So I felt like the best way to go about it is to invite two of my friends who I know are very knowledgeable with the game, and not only do a tier list together for tier 2, an updated one, but also just talk about tier 2 in general. And I think it's really important that you guys just don't hear my opinion, but I think it's also equally as important, more important, that you don't listen to these people that have never played a minute in tier 2 of their life, but they're experts, okay? Like I said, it's also very important that you don't just listen to me, because I have my own opinions and there are always different opinions, but you should always be taking opinions from people who have actual experience. And these two people right here are not only people that have played the game since the beginning, but they're also people that that have played a lot of tier 2. So it would be good to hear their opinions along with mine, and that is kind of the whole purpose of this video. To my left here, or to the right side of your screen, to my left, we have Mr. Blue, who I will allow to introduce himself in a second, and Mr. Joey down here. Both of you guys, I think Blue, I think this is the first podcast I've done with Blue for Throne, but Joey, I think Joey and I have already done a few videos together. So yeah, Blue, can you please introduce yourself? Let us know where we can find you.
All right, my name is Blue. I've been playing the game since, like Kanon said, KR launch. I play on Japan servers. I was on NA East with the Freedom and Supple, but now I'm playing Japan server, NA West, and Korea servers. But you can find me on twitch.tv/itmeblue, or you could just search youtube.com/BDOblue, and
you need to get that BDO out of your name, bro.
No, man, I always gotta have it, man. That's like the easiest identifier. But you could also do like YouTube/fanboyblue. But that's like from like an old like Xbox Call of Duty stuff. So, but it's like the same YouTube link.
If you're watching on YouTube, links to his channel can be found in the description below. And Joey, please introduce yourself. Let us know who you are, where we can find you, man.
Okay, so basically, like Blue, the same. We both played Korea for more than a year now, and now I currently play more on the Japanese servers, and along with other content creators like Mr. Welps. And so basically, the class I played in tier 2 is more oriented on melee, which is the Greatsword Dagger, and then I've also played the Crossbow. So, and here we are when it comes to the tier 2 talks. Like we dive into the meta for Throne Liberty in global.
Yeah, and like I said, you could find Joey's links as well in the description below if you are watching on YouTube. Let's get right into this, guys. Let's get right into this. The first topic we're going to be going over are just your general thoughts. Just your general, like just very, very general when it comes to tier 2. And let's start with you, Blue. General thoughts on tier 2. It could be anything.
Okay, so I think T2, especially with the new mastery, just introduces so much damage with a lot of different weapons that it allows, like, combine that with all like the PvE buffs that they've done to so many of the weapons. When it comes to like a lot of the PvE content, it does like allow for a lot more of a lot broader like weapon combination variety. When it comes to people that want to do challenge modes, diversity, exactly. And then when it comes to, I mean, honestly, even when it comes to like T2 with PvP on the PvP side of things, you see the same meta, but then you also see people like doing like some like, I guess you could call it off meta things that are working to some extent. So it's kind of cool. It's like the T2 gear, especially with Talandre, just gives us a lot more options when it comes to build paths. You still have like what some people would say meta or bis, but the truth is like there's so many different variety or different versions to get the similar stats, which is like, I don't know, I found pretty cool. Especially as someone who loves the theory craft, it's like go on forever.
Joey, any general thoughts on tier 2?
I'm pretty sure Blue has mentioned most of it, aside from, of course, the artifacts, which offer another layer of either damage or defenses for your character, making you much stronger than tier 1. Like the difference between tier 2 and tier 1 is vastly different. Like something in tier 1 that could be bad or underperforming could actually be overwhelmingly good in tier 2. Depends on how you set up your build. And thanks to the new mastering system, we're going to see a lot newer up and coming builds that might shape the meta, you know.
I think for me, if I were to use a BDO example, since we got BDO blue in the house, you know what it feels like? Tier 1 feels like pre-awakening. And then tier 2 feels like you now have succession and awakening in the game. For me, it kind of feels like that because it's like tier 1 Throne is way more build variety than most MMOs, even tier 1, right? Because there is build variety. But then when you experience tier 2 with the new, especially with the new mastery system, the new tier 2 gear and the mastery system and the artifacts and all these things that are coming in all at once, by the way, for global, you look back at tier 1, you're like, oh my gosh, tier 1 was so limiting. You know, it's like tier 1, like, you know, it was there, the options, like, were there really that many options now that I think about it? But honestly, for me, right, I feel like the mastery system and artifact system especially coming in has really opened it even more. Because, like, okay, the build variety is definitely better with gear in tier 2. But I feel like the build variety, it's not as much as what people think. There's a lot of people that kind of hear us echo, yeah, the build, there's more build variety, it is better. And it's true, but it's, at the end of the day, man, there's still not, like, you're still going to see a lot of, you know, 2-piece Imperial, 2-piece Vanguard, 2-piece Palace. You're going to see a lot of overlap with gear, even in tier 2. I just think the stat allocations are better, right? So, like, if you actually look at the amount of gear, there's a similar amount of tier 2 gear as there is in tier 1, a similar amount. But there's so many more pieces that are useful in tier 2, which is why you have a little bit more build diversity, because it's very clear NCSoft kind of understood what stats were actually good by the time tier 2 came out. You know what I mean? Like, and we saw that reflected with their accessories and their gear pieces. All of a sudden we have like a lot of different options. So for me, I think tier 1 and tier 2 is going to be pretty big, but I also don't think, by the way, tier 2 is fully figured out, even in KR. And I say this, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on this, but what I say to my chat and community is, sorry guys, I mean, you could sit there and theory craft all you want for tier 1, that's just figured out. But because not only is that old content, but we had a lot of people, even in the West, because we had a lot of Westerners and global people that played tier 1 that already went through that, you know, like tens of thousands, maybe even like probably hundreds of thousands of people that already figured that out. In tier 2, KR is relatively dead, right? You don't have hundreds of thousands of people playing tier 2, testing tier 2. And number two, masteries are new. More importantly, the bigger factor is masteries are relatively new. And in order to fully test the mastery system, you need to grind mastery points and you need the ore and all that stuff to unlock. You know, like there's no one in here that has
a lot of time.
It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time. I don't know about you guys, but I'm not at level fucking 200. Excuse my French, but level 200 mastery. There, you know, so like, So I'll wrap this up. Sorry for the long rant, but I genuinely don't think it's even figured out now. And the mastery does affect the meta and does impact it. I think global is going to have a much more min-maxed meta when we get it, just because there's way more people in global still playing the game compared to KR, and masteries are still new. So that's my take. Sorry, go for it, Blue.
Yeah, no. To piggyback off of what you're saying is like, so I found out. So I've been like for like reference in KR, like for the last like since Talandre and the new masteries have been out, I've now have bounced between like 3 different guilds, just because each guild I'm in, it starts to like die. So then we merge into another guild and so forth, right? So I've used like Discord for guild chat. I've used, and then 2 other Chinese versions of Discord.
What do they use? QQ? What do they use?
Okay. Okay.
Not to get off topic,
Twitch,
sorry.
Don't ban me, but it's called it's called Kook, Kook, and then another one called Oops. I swear to God, don't ban me, Twitch. But yeah. So it's really weird, but I've been through them all, and I've noticed something. This is similar in KR BDO servers too. A lot of Korean players like to keep their gears like not like they try to keep as much as they can secret or within their guild. And what I've noticed is like one of the Korean guilds I've been in, and then also with the Chinese guilds I've been in, a lot of them end up finding out what enemy players have based off of the accounts that are being sold. They will like, so like there's a Chinese website and then there's a Korean website, and then they go to those websites, they look on the server that has the most popular PvP or the server they're on.
Yeah.
If they notice that certain people, like say like for example Goblin, they had lost almost an entire guild to Path of Exile too, funny enough.
Yeah.
But when that happened, a lot of accounts flooded that like those sites, and they started to see, oh look, this weapon is using this weapon's using that, and then that starts to become like you start to see that being the meta and across the rest of the gear, like the rest of the guilds.
Sure.
And I think I've said this to my chat too. It's like I'm really excited to see global get T2, because global, a lot more people are willing to share, talk about their builds, and we have quest log and things like that. That's a lot more like public, and so we're gonna be able to see a lot more. Like, I mean, you look at some people playing Crossbow Wand, for example. Like, you have like two different versions. You have one that's like full like kind of support-ish, like defensive, trying to stay alive. You have another one with like Tevent Wand, Bellander Crossbow, and it's like I think we'll see more of that stuff like kind of min-maxed on global because people are like going to be talking about it more and sharing their builds and their ideas on it and things of that, like just that for an example.
I definitely do want to talk to you guys about your thoughts on, you know, just predictions with our meta, tier 2 meta for global. But go ahead, Joey, if you want to add anything to that.
Okay, so basically they can look at the new mastery system, since not a lot of people have managed to reach 200 on the mastery. In terms of mastery, it's kind of very difficult, but it opens up new avenues for how you would construct your builds. Because depending on what mastery line you take, your build will be more oriented to support that, you know? And there's just like, it's basically like as Blue said, and in regards to like the Goblin Alliance quitting guilds, that they're selling their accounts. Now people are figuring out what they're finally wearing, and they're actually trying to gatekeep that. They're hiding their gear because nobody wants to get copied. It's competitive. It's competitive in Korea. Unless you're in their guild, they're not sharing shit, basically.
Yeah.
But because as Blue, the point that Blue made with the Chinese website and the account selling and stuff,
it's actually 5-head, by the way.
Yeah,
it's actually 5-head, bro. That's actually fun.
It's 5-head, bro. Now we figured out all the hidden juice.
Yeah, no, like legit, like on WeChat, every other like I joined WeChat for one of the guilds, and every other day I would just see like posts of like different different accounts, and I'm like, are they buying accounts or what? And then I asked, and I found out, and then
hunting.
Yeah, and like, okay, honestly, I don't mean to plug, but like, so like one of my guilds knew that I was a writer for Maxwell, right? So they literally told me, like, they said, hey, this channel in Discord is just for gear. Don't share it on Maxwell. I'm like, oh, okay.
Dude,
it was like, they were like, I see the what's up?
That would put you in a tough situation. By the way, I wish you did plug that in the intro. I completely forgot. Yeah, you should have said that. Yeah, by the way, for those of you who don't know, I'll say at this point, which kind of sucks because it's not in the beginning, but like Blue is one of the max roll guys for Throne. But yeah, doesn't that put you in a funny situation because you kind of have to put good builds on max roll, right?
Right, yeah. So like basically I told them, I was like, honestly, I won't put like your exact build because like, you know, but so what I told them was like, you know, what I will do though is if it is a good build and it's like optimized build, I will use it as like a base, and then I'll try and optimize it better. And then this is going to be a lot harder to do now, but like with T1 gear and like early T2 gear, I spent Lucent to actually build them and test them a little bit. And so like, so that's what I did with some of the T1 stuff too is, so I told them, I was like, I will most likely, like, if it's good, I'll probably, like, if I find out about it and I have to, like, optimize, I'll, like, make an optimized version. It may not be exactly, like, the same one that you see, but if you see an optimized version, like, I have to still, I can't just tell people to build
you gotta
like
make it
build,
look like it's like it's almost the same, but it's not exactly the same.
Yeah. The thing is, man, it's not. I really, at the end of the day, it's not a big deal, man. It's really not a big deal. Like it's like I said, I don't think they're. every now and again, you do for sure, especially in tier 2, come across some build where you're like, wait a second, what is that? I remember Joey and I were actually doing a Dominion event one day, and there's this dude that was resisting everything, not only collision but also stun, and we were like, what is this? What is this guy running?
Right.
You know, so occasionally you will run into a guy that's got, you know, but honestly, guys, generally when you see these builds and you discover them, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, you know, like I see what he's running, but it's nothing like you discovered a new mathematical formula or something like that. You know what I mean? So I think you'll be fine, Blue. Totally fine.
Yeah. There's also a guy in our chats, Harry. I can't say the second part. I always forget. Balzagna. I don't know. Harry Balls is what I call him.
Harry Balls.
But yeah.
Harry Balls?
He's actually so originally there's like 3 or 4 different like all evasion builds, right? Like they're for the most part the same. 2-piece Forgotten Assassin, 2-piece Tracker.
Sure.
Or sometimes 2-piece Dominus. But I just want to shout him out because what he's been doing in the DPS Discord, which has been kind of cool to see, is that he's been taking the builds and then he's been like trying to say, oh, well, do we need bonus damage? Okay, let me try to make a build with bonus damage. Even SNS Expo, like it's like I feel like it's kind of recently come to light, like the popular build that everyone's running. And so now he's already like, oh, can I make a triple evasion version? And he's already like, literally, I wake up at like 4 a.m. I see the Discord message like, look at the build I made. I made like an alternative for this, and I'm just like, I'm going back to sleep. But like realistically, it's kind of cool to see it.
That's awesome.
Just like to kind of like go on to the point of what was that. Yeah, it'll like we're gonna see a lot of that in global, which is gonna be crazy, especially with the new mastery.
I love shit like that, and that's one of the biggest reasons why I love Throne. Joey's the same way, by the way. Not to speak for him, but Joey and I, man, we would nerd out on Questlog all the time. But I'm just gonna say it. I'm sorry, man. I'm just gonna say it because it does annoy me. People like Harry, if you know, you come out, you make builds, you put it together, you're like, yo, check this out, what do you think? You know, I love that because it is constructively working with people, trying to figure things out, and it's like, you'll love that. But like, what I hate is that dude that puts something together that's never spent a minute in tier 2, and he's like, your build is wrong. Your build is wrong. My build, you need to build like this. This is right. I'm like, motherfucker, you've never played a tier 2, and like, I hate that. Oh, it's so annoying. It's so annoying to see. That's why, like, it even like pushes me away from even doing build stuff because I'm just like, oh my gosh, like it's like, bro, like who the hell? It's like there was a
YouTuber, I think, someone was saying like at the start of T1, that was like literally that's all he was doing is going across every single content creator's builds and making a YouTube about why it's wrong compared to his. I'm like, there's no way.
Wait, who is this? Who is this? In KR?
I don't remember the name. I don't remember the name.
A Western creator?
Yeah, it was an EU player. It was an EU curator. Yeah, dude. I was like, dude, there's no way. But yeah, because I remember like one day like waking up like seeing a message about it. I'm like, that's crazy.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. There's so many people. There's so many people.
Also, like, I think it came to a point, no, Kanon, when we were PvPing in tier 2, that as soon as we touch someone, we immediately know this motherfucker is running this.
Oh yeah, that's another thing too. Yeah, when if you know enough about the game, if you've played enough, you can feel out someone's build. It's like you kind of know. You can almost kind of put it together based off your damage, based off your CCs, your resist, and you're like, okay, I think this guy's running this and this and this. But yeah. Okay, so let's segue to the next topic here, which is Throne in tier 2 versus tier 1 as a game. So let's get away. We're gonna talk a lot about classes and balance and all that stuff today, obviously, but let's talk about Throne as a game, as a whole. There's a lot of content coming in tier 2, but let's be real here, guys. It's still the same game, right? You're still doing your daily contracts and all that good stuff. Obviously, there's more content to it now, though, but it is the same loop.
You guys do a loop?
What do you guys think about tier 2 Throne Liberty game as a whole compared to tier 1? Is it better? Is it worse? Is it the same shit? Like just yeah. Let's start with you, Joey.
Okay, so comparing like tier 2 to tier 1, there are certain thresholds that you could not reach in tier 1. like the hit versus evasion kind of thing, it's kind of difficult to play certain classes, especially when you're fighting uh class like the spear right now, which is one of the most meta weapons in tier one, right? So fighting a spear as a bow or a crossbow, it's kind of difficult, especially if that spear player is running like melee range evasion. You just can't. They just have so much evasion, and you can't stack enough hit without sacrificing too much. But in tier two, you can. But there are still stats that you have to sacrifice. But overall, it's like on an all-time high, all of your stats basically. So you can cook up some builds that would allow you to enjoy the class in a much better perspective instead of what you have right now in tier one, where it's if your server's like evasion meta, miss, or you that or you run like a hit build and then you just everything else kills you, or you run a like everyone's just running an evasion build and then no one has a hit and then everyone's just miss, or it's the other way around, which is you have endurance. So people tend to stack more crit and heavy attack and whatnot. It depends on what server you have, but the thresholds are a bit lower than it is in tier two, where you can literally have gameplay
That
dynamics
cat's face,
that
bro.
are, you know,
Look at that cat's face.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, man.
Okay.
That cat gave
Sorry,
off that
sorry.
look that cat was giving. Dude, he's like, he had a problem with what you just said, man. He's like, this cat just comes in, this motherfucker talking shit. Yo, okay, but like, okay, let's get away from the meta and class talk for a second.
Like,
Just
game content.
yeah. Like, as a
just
game.
the tier two content.
Yeah, just as
Okay,
a
so
gamer,
the
just a
Nebula
regular
Island,
Andy,
bro.
MMO Andy that wants to play the
Let's
game.
talk about the Nebula Island, man.
I think
24/7
like in terms of T2 versus T1 in terms of content, it's kind of like you said, it's the same daily loop. It is kind of cool to see like have a different change of pace of like different places. I do like that they made like artifacts where you can target farm them in certain open world dungeons.
I love that. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's kind of the same thing. You log it. Like, I don't know. Okay. Actually, I lied. It's kind of nice because right now, as assuming you're not in a server where your alliance just get rolled every nighttime PvP. Right now it's kind of cool for like players that like to do like the PvE content in the game. If you are in a server where you can kind of get some nighttime chests, you can there's a little bit better of a loop of like dungeons. You do your open world farm, you use your abyssal currency, then you go do your dungeons, you get your nighttime chests for dungeons, and now because there's one in Lizard Island, there's a place in Shadow Crypt, and with Talandre and Crimson Mansion is another, there's more options and there's more like areas for different guilds or different alliances to go to. So there's more people able to get those chests, and then you kind of have like that loop, right? But at the same time, like I'm gonna be honest, I hate PvE personally. So like that shit gets so boring so fast that like most of the times I end up just like logging in like 3-4 hours just for the PvP, and I'm just like, all right, well, I'm gonna go swap to a different region for more PvP.
Yeah.
Yeah. The solo dungeons will be nice though, because at least that way you can kind of like do shit on your own when you want to.
I see someone in chat asking, are artifacts married to PvP content? If what you're asking is, are they married as in like you can only get them through PvP? The answer to that is no. The main way you get them is Nebula and open world dungeon farming. And to be perfectly honest, it used to actually be mainly from open world dungeons because the drop rate was so shit in Nebula. But that's been obviously improved. But yeah, you don't have to do Nebula at all, and you could still get your artifacts pretty much like how you would get runes. Only instead of doing instead of doing trial dungeons, you're doing open world dungeon grinding instead, which you're doing anyway. But there are also a lot of like weekly rewards and just like event rewards and stuff that you can get where you can get more artifacts as well.
I finally
Also-
got my Soulish Stone.
Oh, did you?
Also, there's that new feature, right, Kanon?
Which one?
They added this on the Nebula Island where the mobs glow and they respawn a lot faster.
I am not sure.
farm.
I haven't spent too much time grinding, and every time I go to Nebula, I have one job: to spin.
PvP
Bro,
controls
seriously,
teleport.
dude, my experience post Expo Cordy has just been so different. Like every other class, I just feel like I was experiencing more of the game, more of everything else. Whether that's like, you know, specific rules on the battlefield or just whatever. Like as a Cordy user, whatever it is I do, it doesn't matter if it's an arc boss fight, it doesn't matter if it's this. No, I go to this location and I spin. That's all it is. I don't know, dude. I've not been able to farm, dude. I can't remember last time I saw Grim, the world boss that spawns in Nebula. I can't remember the last time I even went. Dude, yeah, I don't remember the last time I even went into that freaking portal because all I do now is I just spin outside of it. That's my job.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, like most bows and bow staffs, they kind of have the same thing where it's like, okay, sit here and spam your AoE in this area, so the moment they load in, they die.
Yeah, like that mosh pit. Like the mosh pit.
Yeah, it's just like perma, like...
Bro, Blue, you know what you should do? You know what you should do? You should just, when you get your Cordy, just go to the mosh pit, get a full team, and spin for 7 hours, and then rack up your kills.
I've been doing it already.
Rack up your kills, and then just make a YouTube, and just take a screenshot, and just be like, look, I have the best build, 9,000 kills. And you know what I mean?
9,000
you know
kills over 8 hours.
Dude, there's so many people that I'm just like, bro, look at how many kills he's getting. I'm like, bro, trust me. If I wanted to get 9,000 kills, I probably could. Obviously not 9,000. I probably could. All you'd have to do is literally get a Cordy and spin on that mosh pit, full buffed every minute, every 45 seconds, and keep doing it over and over and over and over, and over again.
I mean, you kind of read my mind. So what I'm doing right now is I'm actually trying to get top 20 and then top 10 kill rankings without any arc boss. So I can spread the SNS Expo propaganda with no arc boss.
I want to talk about SNS Expo because that's a big deal. Okay, but before we do, let's continue with our little topic here. Let's wrap this segment up. General, just Throne Liberty. If you guys want my take, here's my TLDR, very short take. It's this. It's the same game, but it's better. It's aesthetically better. Anytime you play an MMO that has a bigger world, it's better. There's just something about tier 2 that just is more fun in a lot of different categories. For example, the build that you're playing, the class that you're playing is, regardless of how it performs compared to the meta, it's just going to be more fun. Your Greatsword Dagger, regardless of where it is in the meta, it's going to feel better because it's just more powerful. It's faster, it deals more damage. Every class is the same, right? Every class is the same in that regard. It just feels better. So in that regard, I think it's more fun, it's better. And then you have Nebula on top, right? You have more vertical progression systems that give you incentive, that give you more continued, that give you continued incentive to ride. You have 3-star, if you do like PvE content, you have 3-star dungeon trials that are going to come in that are significantly more difficult than 2-star trial dungeons. And just more juice. So it is the same game, but you guys will see it is, for me personally, just more fun for whatever reason that may be. But let's move on. What do we have here? Class meta and tier 2. Now this is going to be probably a very long, very, very, very long segment. We'll try and keep it under 8 hours. Tier 2 meta. Let's start this segment off. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff here, but let's start this segment off with one very simple question. What do you think outside of SNS Wand? Because I feel like SNS Wand is like, it's obviously very important. It's very strong, right? Like it's across all categories. It's like, it's a healer. It's very okay. Outside of that, which class outside of healers, okay? Outside of healers and just like big sponge tanks, okay, that are very like, you know, you need that for every game. Which class do you think has the biggest impact? What do you think is the biggest overall impact class in tier 2?
Outside of SNS?
Outside of well, it could be SNS something, but like outside of like
a true
boss? No, let's include everything. Let's include everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I guess I'll go ahead. You go first.
Go for it, Joey.
Wait, Crossbow. That's it. The one-man army.
Is the volume?
One button.
Sorry to interrupt. Just to make sure, double check. How's the volume, guys? Is the volume okay? I'm hearing some people talk about the volume being too low. I feel like the volume was okay. Can we get a mic check real quick?
Mic check. Hello.
Volume check.
Hello.
We're
Hold on,
good.
check.
Mic check 1 2 and 2.
Anyone
Oh,
from
good.
Blue Stream?
It might be on my side. People in my stream and Blue Stream, how's it sound? Is it fine? For Canon is too low. Okay, I can fix
For
that.
me, okay. You got me on mute, bro. Okay, cool.
There, that should be better.
All right, sorry. Go ahead, Joey.
Where was I at? Oh yeah, Crossbow. Literally the one weapon that takes them all. The one-man army. The
Okay.
200k Lucent.
No, Cordy. So you're talking specifically
Yeah.
Cordy. Okay.
Crossbow, yeah, pretty much. Cordy Crossbow. That is one of the weapons in the game. One of the only weapons that can change the tide of a fight, if depending on how many you can have of those, and if they know how to properly
yeah.
use the class, you know.
Yeah.
And aside from that, like I don't see the other classes competing with that much power.
Right.
You know, the capacity to like delete 20, 30
Yeah.
geared players that have been grinding the game for more than a year and they're not under geared or anything. It's just that weapon is just stupidly overpowered, that the class itself without that weapon is not doing, not even remotely close to what that weapon offers in the table. Like for example, you're playing Belender Crossbow. You're not, when you try to spin, you're not going to be doing the same or nearly not even 60% of what a Cordy Crossbow can do. Right? You still deal damage. You can still delete people like single target. There's no problem with that. The range single target assassin, you're still good with that. But the Cordy itself, you can just, why bother going single target when you can delete like half of a guild in one button, including tanks and healers?
So stupid 246. I appreciate the prime, man. So we are talking about general PvP, and when I say general PvP in my mind, it's like we're talking large scale and GVGs. But I'm pretty sure Joey means for both. For both of those categories.
Like because you use it, right?
I don't know.
You've experienced it firsthand, bro.
It's crazy that I was able to get a Cordy as a free-to-play player, but sorry, go ahead. Blue.
That's a good one.
I was gonna say, I mean, okay, so I feel like after some of these changes, with Cordy Expo, like we've all seen Jijong, right? But he's always been like one of those like top fraggers. Jijong. He's a YouTuber. Jijong.
Okay.
He's a YouTuber. He's a SNS Crossbow, Cordy Crossbow user.
Okay.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, I feel like, I mean, I could be wrong here, but from my experience fighting some of the Cordy Crossbow users without having one after the changes, like fighting against them and things, I feel like it takes a lot of. It's not just like, hey, I got a Cordy Crossbow, I'm gonna go spin and just delete everybody. It takes a lot of like, how do I put it? Like, you need a healer. You need
the rotation, the buffs,
setup. It takes setup.
Well, not even outside of like, yeah, it needs like a lot of setup, but it also takes resources because like if you like again, Jijong, I'm just gonna bring him up a lot because he's like a consistent top fragger that everyone knows about, right? If you watch his YouTube videos, you'll see he's had a 50k HP Greatsword Wand pocket healer that perma pockets him to the point to where I don't remember if it was when he was in Goblin or a different guild. He did Siege recently, and they made them take a third person, and that third person didn't get a single heal the entire Siege, and it ended up causing drama over it. And if you watch from like the Greatsword Wand point of view, like they blood devo every single time, all these perfect, like all the buffs you can think of for a Greatsword Wand to give to him, and you could just watch like 50k HP, and you just watch with that blood devo, like it goes down like almost instantly. And it's like, as strong as Cordy Crossbow is, I feel like it takes so much resources. And then when you look at say you watch a war games, right? Of some like two top guilds, you'll see SNS Crossbows up there, but just underneath that, you'll see like a bajillion staffs. Mostly right now, I think it's like staff dagger and bow staffs. And then when you look at something like say Nebula Island, how important Nebula Island is, right? You need to control the spawns, etc. The best way to control those spawns aren't a Cordy Crossbow. It's the bow staffs that are constantly throwing tornadoes up and constantly CCing. That way, the moment they get teleported in, they get CC'd and then they just get insta-died by the staffs. And there are some Cordy Crossbows. Now, obviously, to break that is you go in with an SNS Crossbow, you instantly spin to try to break that, and it's pretty good. But I think that with all the changes, like staff is actually starting to kind of like compete to an extent on how useful it can be compared to just saying, oh, Cordy Crossbow #1, no contest, if that makes sense.
So what would you say? Which class do you think for you? It's just staff, DPS staff in general. Sorry, you're muted. Are you muted or did I mute him? I can't hear you.
Testing. Is
now
this better?
I can hear you. Yeah.
My mute button is broken.
Oh.
I think that it's like I honestly can't just choose one. I think it's a combination because like Cordy Crossbow is really, really good, especially to break up like a giant Zerg. But it takes a lot of resources, and then you still need something like that staff to like do a lot of additional AoE damage in that Zerg. And then you still need like in a lot of areas, you still need that stuff like the bow to provide that like giant Zerg wide like CC potential with tornadoes and things like that. And I mean, and on global, I think we're gonna see a lot of staff or wand users sleep bombing again, with Tevin Wand being so strong. I think we're gonna see a lot more of like that helping to break up the Zergs and CC the Zergs as well. I mean, obviously Cordy Crossbow is still gonna be there, but I genuinely do think like in terms of like usefulness, so you're gonna see more than just the damage. You're gonna see the CC from these other weapons be really, really important in some of these fights to turn the tide.
Sure. So while we're on that subject, do you think Cordy Crossbow is overpowered?
I think it is overpowered if you have the right setup with the right party. Because I have killed since swapping this to SNS Crossbow, I have killed so many Cordy Crossbow users because I see we have them feuded and my guildmate will call it out. I'll just pop counter barrier, pop my defensive buffs, sit there and then wait. And then even when they go in, you can tell when they're about to use their stuff because they pop their buffs. You just hold block. And a lot of them will end up dying because half the server is SNS already. Obviously, there's like shield pin and stuff, but like even with the shield pin, like it's still enough to like kill a lot of these guys with counter barrier. So it's like I don't know. I don't think it's OP on its own. I think it requires a lot of stuff to make it OP.
Yeah, I think as someone that uses the weapon, I will say that I never die when I spin when I have full buffs. So like if you're killing people with your counter barrier that are spinning on you, then they probably didn't have some kind of
No, exactly. It takes a lot of resources.
Right. And I 100% agree with your breakdown of it. It like what a lot of people don't recognize is that it does require a lot of setup. So like please listen to me as I'm saying this in front of these guys too, right? For the vast majority of you guys, Cordy will be a terrible class to play. Like even if you had the option, it would be a terrible class. And the reason why is because the vast majority of you watching this video, you will not be in a top guild, a top competitive guild. The majority of the people that play this game are in like kind of like regular mediocre guilds that might show up with like, 15 to 30 people in a GVG, playing against another 15 to 30 man group. And if you don't have a clump to spin on against, and you don't have a party that will literally be fully dedicated to you dealing maximum damage and dealing maximum kills, Cordy isn't going to be the best experience, honestly. Like for me, like if I'm not in an actual real fight against goblins with my guild, it's kind of boring, honestly. I'm not really doing anything because another thing is like you have to build for Cordy. It's not like, like you don't get like this Expo Dagger build and then like it's like you have an ideal
slap a random Cordy.
Yeah, exactly. You need to have a specific Cordy build, which is expensive. So imagine playing a weapon that is very situationally strong, top tier, but it's situationally top tier, and it's just like, it's just not going to be a good experience for a lot of people. Now, if you're in a top guild and you're going to be competing, by all means, it's going to be fantastic being like, the main character of your guild. Essentially, it's going to kind of feel like it's like, if Jeffrey has a Cordy, it's like, is Jeff alive? Is Jeff in position? It's like, where's our Cordy guys? But it does. I will say if utilized correctly and you have a party and if we're talking about a competitive fight, I would agree that it is the biggest impact weapon, and just the fact that even Blue is explaining what they do, the fact that his guild is calling out and feuding the Cordy users,
Yeah, the fact that you
is
have to
proof in the pudding.
specifically single
Yeah,
out one
right.
dude,
Like you're
one-
you're not singling out a staff dagger. Like they're everywhere.
Nah.
They're very important. They're very impactful. Don't get me wrong. They're huge, right? Arguably just as good, but you're not feuding them. Like you're feuding the Expo Cordys because you know the potential impact that they can make in your fight. An example is me and J-Hope, which is the other. He's one of the top, I think, the top Expo Dagger player in our server. We both have Cordys, and we did a 1v1 against Goblin in one of our fights, and they're coming across the bridge. And I'm reading some of these messages like, oh, they're two clumps. It's like, bro, there's literally one entrance. It's like, you have to go through this bridge. Don't talk as if like KR is bad and Goblin is bad because they're going across this bridge. Motherfucker, how are you going to get through Malachar Riftstone then? Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like looking at that Malachar Riftstone bridge and be like, why are they using that? It's like, that's the only freaking entrance, you idiot. You know, like, it's like, come on. Like, you know, it's like, there's a reason why they're, so like, to give an example for that fight, him and I, we got a good spin-off, both of us, and their group was in, you know, and we went in there stealth, which is why I think even though SNS Expo does more damage than Expo Dagger when it comes to Cordy spins, Expo Dagger, you have the ability to stealth, so it's a little bit easier to get the preemptive spins off if you're not paying attention, but we each got like somewhere between 10 to 15 kills. And think about this, in a 60v60 fight, if you have two members that get like 15 kills each, that's 30. That now we're talking about a 60v40, 60v30, just like that. You're not going to win that. You're not going to win a 60v30, right? Like that's the only thing that like an Expo Cordy can do. But like Blue said, it's a lot of what ifs. You need a party. Like, do you have the party that's going to set that up for you? And do you have a party that, even if they're trying to set it up, are they good enough to actually execute it? Because it's not the easiest. There's plenty of times where I try to spin and I die. You know, we get interrupted, we do whatever. You know, it's not foolproof, right? You still have to make the play. So I personally think Expo Cordy is, but if we were to remove Expo Cordy out of the equation, what do you think is the current strongest DPS class right now? Blue, I'm going to send it back to you. Strongest DPS class outside of a Cordy?
Staff Dagger.
Staff Dagger. Okay.
Staff Dagger.
Joey, what do you think?
I agree. Staff Dagger.
I would agree.
Simply
I would
because
agree.
You don't need to have an arc boss to do so well with Staff Dagger.
That's a great point.
Yeah, like you can have a completely free-to-play build and you can still wreck people. You can be one of those dudes sitting on the perch with a Staff Dagger and dropping meteors, bombing inferno waves, giant inferno waves for God knows how they're allowed to do that. But, you know, they can do it and they can be consistent with it. That's the most important thing, is that you don't need a party dedicated to you as a Staff Dagger to perform. Right? You can you can be put into any party and you can just run with them and you play together and then you're good. They don't have to you don't have to have a dedicated buffer. You don't have to have a pocket healer. You can do well without all of those as a Staff Dagger.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yep.
Blue, have you played much Staff Dagger?
I learned it a little bit, and I was okay when we first saw the patch notes for this week. I went to sleep thinking, "Shit, what am I gonna do? Am I gonna have to like make a staff?" And I was like, I was about to. Like, I woke up that next day and I was already on a site that won't be named, figuring out how much lucid I'm gonna need to, swap over.
But
speaking of though. People were asking about the SNS crossbow, the Cordy crossbow. Are you okay if I link the video in the chat?
Yeah, go for it. Go for it. Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Yeah. So post nerf Cordy. Let's talk about Expo Cordy now, because this is something that a lot of people have been talking about. Thoughts on Expo Cordy now post nerf? So it's been nerfed twice, by the way. Expo SNS, geez. Cordy Expo SNS has now technically been nerfed twice. No.
It didn't get nerfed today.
No, I'm talking about the nerf to
the previous
mastery,
the previous patches. Yeah.
Right. The mastery nerf. And then the one before that was the nerf to the Cordy itself, bringing the multiplier down from that went along with the Gale changes, right? So there's two nerfs, right?
Yeah, the mastery nerf isn't a nerf. It didn't
Okay.
affect the damage part, only the taunt.
Okay. Oh, okay. So yeah. So I have not. So that was this week, right? This past week.
Yes.
Yeah. So I have not
Mhm.
tested this quote unquote nerf, right? But it certainly looked like a nerf on paper, like written. But you had an opportunity to test it, right? What
I was
did
playing
you,
it all night
yeah.
tonight.
Let's hear it. Can you give us? Can you break it down for us?
Yeah, so like basically when you taunt somebody, right? If you have that passive up, every time you hit them, you can like extend the duration. So like you used to be able to say you get a rake into a pool or a rake into an AoE taunt and you spin, right? You can potentially taunt those players up to 2 minutes long. And at the time, even if you died and you
You're
if they
still
died and came back, they're still taunted. So they can't use any single target damage unless it's on you. They have to use AoE. And that worked like for PvE, that was really, really great too. That part is what got nerfed with the three times per 1 second. The actual damage part still works. Like you still get all the damage off every hit.
Right. Okay. So it's a nerf. So it doesn't allow you to extend the duration of that taunt to perma taunt someone. Essentially, is what you're saying.
But nobody taunts. Yeah, but nobody uses taunt on SNS Crossbow in PvP because the new mastery allows you to do the AoE damage without taunting, so nobody uses the taunt. So effectively, there's no real change.
Gotcha. So it didn't really get nerfed. So thoughts on Expo SNS? Because I have tested it, the DPS portion of it. That is, I've stuck with Expo Dagger. Just, to be perfectly honest, I'm too lazy to grind it out again, so I'm just gonna stay on Expo Dagger for the Cordy. But Blue, you're someone that's actually testing Expo SNS quite extensively, and you're testing it even without a Cordy. One of the most common questions I get asked is it even viable without Cordy? So like, what are your thoughts on Expo SNS, generally speaking, and with Cordy, both with and without?
Okay, my normal answer to people that ask me in chat is, sorry, my dog is a little barking. My normal answer is pretty much if you want to play AoE damage in large scale and you don't have Cordy, just play staff. Just use your crossbow dagger build, your regular triple evasion, whatever, and just pop on a staff. Don't go SNS crossbow. But with that being said, it is definitely like it is possible to do because you do a lot of damage. Like literally every hit from your spin, along with Mother Nature's Protest, every hit in melee range procs that AoE, right? So say you have 5 people there and you do minimum 16 hits of your spin, and then the Mother Nature's Protest makes it 32 hits on each person. That's 32 times 5 because there's 5 people in your melee range. That's how many hits of your SNS AoE that you're doing. So like, I mean, you can only imagine the damage if you have bonus damage on, how much damage that actually is. Now, obviously, if you go in and there's like 20 people there, that's even crazier. So it's really strong in terms of damage, but without Cordy, the problem is people can block, they can dodge roll out, they can actually use skills. Whereas with Cordy, it interrupts all of that. It constantly pulls you in. You can't run away. You can't dodge roll. So with SNS Crossbow without Cordy, it's still good damage, but a lot more people can react to it and things like that. With Cordy, it's just crazier damage than you would without Crossbow Dagger. With Crossbow Dagger, provided you have the right build, because you're pulling them in, and so you're amplifying the amount of damage you're doing by like however many people you're pulling in.
You've been testing a non-Cordy Expo SNS build with the Guardian. You were telling me what did you think? Right. How did that go?
It's up and down. I've been testing it with that Guardian. I've been testing with the Guardian that roots him in place, and a few others, and it's up and down. Like the Guardian is nice to have, especially like say like you're at Siege or something like that. It feels really nice, but ultimately, like it's really just gonna be. It really just comes down to like, okay, is there a lot of SNSs there? Do I have buffs? Because I don't have a Blood Devo, so I have to be very careful on when I go in and stuff. But yeah, I mean the Guardian is like literally a pocket Cordy, like or a budget Cordy. You just go in, you start your spin, you wait for a second, and you press it while you're spinning, and it doesn't break your spin. So you pull them in, and it's like it actually does really well, assuming there's not like 50 billion counter barriers up at the same time.
Assuming you don't kill yourself and you've got a Blood Devo up, how many kills are you getting per spin on your SNS Expo without Cordy? If you get a good spin-off.
It depends. Like today I got a nice little like 8-piece, but there was really only 10 people there. I think the most I've gotten in one spin was like 10 to 12 people, but that was like, I'm gonna be honest, I went when Jijong went, so like I pretty much used his Cordy.
Right.
You just last hit everyone.
No, I checked. I did more damage. I did check. I did do more damage, but yeah, I pretty much just used him to like pull them in.
That's what you're Bella, right?
No. I've been switching between Birkin and Belladere.
Okay.
Because the Birkin one is kind of nice because like you can kind of control when you get the buff for the max damage.
Yeah.
And the mana is like so nice. But there's definitely times where I have Belladere. Yesterday I didn't realize I was PvPing without one of my rings on. And that's when I got I think a 7-man without Jijong being there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
With no ring.
So like it's missing one ring. But so it's like it's definitely possible, but it's just like depends on how many SNSs are there and stuff. Yeah.
Okay. So obviously Cordy is pretty big. Last question in regards to SNS Expo. How meta do you think SNS Expo is going to be for us in global?
That's a hard question, especially
with
nothing
nerfs from here.
Well, it's a hard question because a lot of people have messaged me and said, do I have to play SNS? I don't want to play SNS. I want to keep playing Expo Dagger. So like, I think that a lot of people are probably just not going to do it. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see a nerf because AGS is AGS. Like they've like convinced NCSoft to nerf it. Because so probably not crazy meta just because the fact that a lot of people prefer Expo Dagger. And then there's a lot of times where you want that small scale fights and Expo Dagger is definitely stronger than SNS Crossbow for those small scale single target fights.
Thoughts, Joey? What are your thoughts?
I've never played the SNS Expo yet. It's mostly Expo Dagger like you. And I don't have the time to grind up another SNS.
Yeah, I don't think there's a point
to make a build around it. Yeah,
especially
because we have 7 daggers, so there's no way I'm letting go of that. Get a kill.
That's the other issue. A lot of people are like, I don't want to get rid of my 7 daggers, so it's like, a lot of people are asking about the Guardian though, real quick. It's just a new Guardian in Talandre that pulls people in.
So, excuse me, sorry, I'm still getting over a cough, guys. Aside from the whole Expo talk, let's talk a little bit more about just general meta in Tier 2. Okay, what do you guys feel is like one of the biggest differences in Tier 2 meta compared to Tier 1's meta? And it could be like a class thing, it could be a TTK thing, it could be anything, just generally speaking, whatever. Like if I were to come to your stream and was like, hey, what's the biggest difference between Tier 1 and Tier 2 when it comes to the meta and how the PvP feels, what would you guys say? Joey, let's start with you.
More stats. Oh, sorry.
Okay, basically, one of the reasons that I believe that Staff Dagger is taking up the S tier is because one, in Korea, there's a lot of tanks, right? And what counters tanks? Magic. Because most of the tank builds, they run melee range resistances, regardless of whether it's evasion or endurance. But mostly it's endurance. So the weakest stat would be magic. And Staff has that. You have the burst, you have the utility, you have the damage, and you don't need an arc boss to be good. So that's one of the things. Comparing it to a class like Bow Dagger, where you definitely would need to have an arc boss so that you can actually feel the difference in terms of like, min-maxing your range and your damage, your flash waves. And right now with the new patch that's coming, they're adding like shield block penetration to decisive sniping. That's going to be huge for Bow Dagger. We might see more Bow Dagger action in Tier 2 and a good balance between that and Staff Dagger.
So let me throw something your way real quick, not to get off topic, but I think I saw, because I just skimmed through the last patch note. I haven't had time to really look into it in detail, but I think they added hit. Did they add hit to Delos Noah's bow? To Lulu's bow?
Delos Noah.
I thought they added. I thought they added hit. Yeah,
they changed the per count bow, right?
No, but like on top of that, they made adjustments to all the Delulu arc boss weapons. Like for example, the greatsword. The greatsword now, if you run out of the smog, they still get the evasion cut. And I'm pretty sure Delulu bow they added hit. Yeah, chat's confirmed they're adding hit. Thoughts on Delulu bow now?
Oh,
Do you think
I
that
still
brings
don't
it
think
as a
it's-
bow, Andy? Do you think that brings it into the equation?
I still don't think
It's
it
a lot
matches
of
the
hit.
Tevent, bro. The power of a Tevent, bro.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Blue, you've played bow. What do you think?
I
How do you like
think
the
it
Lulu bow?
depends.
Mm-hmm.
I think it depends on someone's gear build because like
Yeah, sure.
you can get a lot of hit without it. It's kind of like how like in T1 and Korea, some people during the evasion meta, some people started using like Grand Elan bow for the hit. Like
Yeah.
a lot of people in Axis, a lot of our bow users used it because of the evasion meta and their build. They didn't want to build more hit in their armor. I think it's just gonna come down to like what your armors are. Tevin is really, really good for single target. And like right now, that's where bow is shining is single target. Shit. There's people playing bow crossbow now for a single target, by the way. Like
I saw
there's a
that,
very
yeah.
popular bow dagger goblin user who's now playing bow crossbow.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the Gale, right? Because of the Gale change.
Not necessarily the Gale change, just that the single target damage is so high. Because of like the new mastery with the new mastery with crossbow, like you get so much more damage. So then you could just go bow like with the way that the gearing works and how you can get so much defenses without needing a dagger, and how much damage crossbow can bring. You pretty much can like kill players with bow crossbow with high damage, and you still get high crit, relatively high crit / crit damage from gear, and without needing 4-piece winged wind, with the new Talandre 2 pieces, along with like the passive from bow.
Yeah.
So it's just like. Yeah, so like I think with Delulu, it's just gonna be dependent on the rest of the player's gear build. But Tevin really is just still so strong.
I mean, yeah, let's not. Yeah, I mean, Tevin is still going to be top, regardless of whether Delulu gets into the picture or not. Tevin's still going to be top tier. I'm just wondering because Delulu is pretty. I mean, I think Delulu is going to be a little bit more in the picture. I don't know if it's going to overtake Tevin, but it's up because Delulu, unless they've changed this from the last time I looked into it. It has more range, it has more base damage, and now it also has hit, right? So on top of the obviously like the knockup that it comes with, but you know, just from like a stat perspective, that's what it is. And bro, I feel like maybe I'm speaking to you here, Blue, but like I love just trying to theory craft and mess around with just super off meta builds. I shit you not, the first thought was, wait a second, Purgatory, I guess Fiendish. I was like, Fiendish Shield with Delulu bow, double hit.
Oh my god, little fatty.
Traits, but wait, is bow is what?
Whoa.
Hold bow
Man.
SNS because Fiendish also gives you more heal and counter barrier, and you run the. You know, I'm like, wait a second, how much hit can I stack on this thing? Wait, little fatty's
SNS
eating.
bow?
You know,
That's
double
All I
hit
gotta
traits.
ask, yeah, little
That's
fatty, is that
haram.
you right there?
Come on,
Dude,
man.
Oh my
Double hit
God.
traits on your weapons. That kind of sounds like you, bro. I don't know.
Oh man.
I love Bow's design though. Like its kit is so incredibly fun. But you know, there's a lot of talk. A lot of people are talking about how much quote unquote weaker Bow is in tier 2. What are your guys' thoughts on that? Blue, let's start with you.
I think a lot of people are focused on Flashwave and how like it's not as strong. And so like in that sense, right? Like the AoE side of like the damage is definitely weaker, especially the new mastery and how staff like definitely shine in that.
Yeah.
But single target wise, it's so strong that like with how like important tornado still is, even like in Korea to this day, right? Like you don't like almost everywhere you go, you still see a bunch of tornadoes getting thrown out. That I think that Bow is still like it is weaker in terms of AoE, but like the single target it can provide can be pretty important. Because somebody was like, how do you counter a Cordy Crossbow user, right? And like one of the ways that some people can counter them is by having a max range bow or staff or both perched somewhere. And hey, I see a Cordy Crossbow user coming in. Let me kill him before he stealths and kills our backline or some shit, like right. And then as a crossbow dagger player earlier, Delulu bow, dude, is so annoying. You jump on them, they use that tornado right there, and I'm just like, okay, well, I guess I'm like in a trampoline in the air for a little bit. It's fuck that weapon. Okay, that's it.
What are your thoughts? I'm gonna have my headphones on. I just need to run to the bathroom, but I don't want to break this flow. I can hear you guys. Thoughts, Joey?
Okay, so basically the Tevent bow, I have I've played against the Goblin Alliance before, and even as a greatsword dagger, even if I had the evasion, if I got hit by like 10 flash waves, I get hit by 10k times 2. It's very painful, especially now with the builds that you can get a lot of hit, you can get a lot of crit and a lot of heavy attack. There are people building bow daggers that have around 800 heavy attack and max range, and they just hit you with that flash wave for 10k times 2. It's just absolutely ridiculous. But that doesn't mean like it's going to beat a Cordy. It's more like it still has a place in the meta, more or less. Like, but overall, right now, I think bow staff is still the most consistent range DPS, range magic DPS that we have because of the kit of having both a bow and a staff. And yeah, that's my take on the bow.
Yeah. I was gonna say, so the thing with bow flash wave, it's not hitting that damage anymore.
Yeah,
Because
because of
of the Talandre.
the new gears in Talandre. Yeah, they
Yeah,
added new
exactly.
gears, and now it's a little bit lesser, but the single, as you said, like the single
Yeah,
target is still there, man. It still kills people.
yeah,
Like
it's
2 weeks
and
ago, I
then
saw that video of that dude. I don't know if you guys are memeing on him, but this dude hit a 12k times 2 decisive sniping. Like, regardless if he was a good player or not, this dude still
A
wrecked
number is
someone
still a
with
number.
20k
Yeah.
HP. A
Yeah.
number is
right.
still a number. And where I'm looking towards that video as a reference, more on the build side of things, instead of like the personal player performance side of things. If I'm seeing those numbers and that guy's
Yeah.
hitting or one tapping someone that's geared with 20k plus HP, then obviously it still works.
Yeah.
Like,
A number is a
you can't
number at the
you
end of
can't
the day.
deny that it still works. It's just
Right.
maybe it's not as good or as consistent as a staff tiger, but the play style is still there. The class is still alive. It's not really dead. That's the main point that I would like to bring upon.
For sure. Yeah. So I do want to talk about Spear. I see Vert in chat asking about Spear. We definitely need to talk about Spear. But before we do, real quick, with these shield pen changes that are coming in, and obviously SNS being very popular, in KR at least, it's become very meta, which I want to actually talk about that, the KR meta and why KR meta became KR meta, but not right now. That is something that I would like to eventually talk about. But there's a lot of SNSs. Do you think, especially with these new changes, do you think that Bo is gonna start? Do you think we're gonna start seeing some like tank buster builds that are designed like single target tank buster builds with Bo? Do you think that could be potentially a thing?
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, like, I think it can be, but we kind of already have that, and like staff already has that, and then I think they got more. So it's like, cool, staff's getting decisive sniping, but Iron Bow's getting decisive sniping shield pin on decisive bombardment, but like, look at staff.
Yeah.
It's like, so I mean, I think it just depends, because I did realize a lot of magic defensive stuff got sold out when I was building my SNS crossbow. I had to wait like 5 days to get endurance trait. So like, I think as people start to swap off, we'll start to see even more bow kind of coming back a little bit, or more people starting to come back to bow. But it's just, staff is just too juicy.
Thoughts, Joey?
Yeah. The only thoughts I have was with the new buffs they're giving Burkant, bro. They're giving it 281 max damage.
But you're not gonna even be
bro.
using that bow, bro.
I'm not, but the people who don't have arc boss,
sure. I'm just messing with you,
like
bro.
Burkant, you guys have to understand.
Uh-huh.
Burkant you can get from tier 3 dungeon tokens. You can grind this. You don't have to buy it, like with Lucent. Like, the free to play players have access to this bow, whose only downside from a Tevent is obviously the range, because its base range is 60 meters. But the way the Limoni's last shot work is, if you crit on 3 players with your decisive sniping, your decisive sniping cooldown gets reduced by 3 seconds per player that you crit, with a maximum of 3 players. So you reduce like around 9 seconds off your decisive sniping, making its cooldown, instead of like around 20 seconds, you have somewhere around 10. So you can almost like use it the same cooldown pace as a firebomb, which you can destroy front lines with it. There's I can see that coming out for bow users.
Okay.
Especially if you're playing bow staff, even like bow staff just got a massive buff with all the shield block pen stuff with staff and then now they added on bow. And now you have both. You know,
Right.
like that. Those are my thoughts basically. It's the
Okay.
shield block pen
So
they adding to that liberator class.
So let's shift gears here. Spear is huge in global. Everyone's talking about spear. You know, most broken class ever. Spear. Okay, let's talk about tier 2 spear. Okay, because spear is not seen in the same way in KR in tier 2. And now I'm gonna let you guys share whether you think that's just a cultural thing, like a region thing, or if it's a tier 1 versus tier 2 thing. But what do you guys think about spear in tier 2? Let's start with you. Joey.
I think there are specific builds that force you, if you want to play spear, especially with the amount of people running like melee mitigation, whether it's melee evasion or endurance, you have to some spear players that I've talked to in Korea, they showed me a build that has range and magic and a lot of hit, and they just focus on more damage. They go in, they bomb, they go out. And it's not even as wildly broken as it is on tier 1, where you just literally throw 2 javelin and someone dies, right? It's not the same in tier 2. People have more HP, people have more mitigation, and overall the Koreans just don't see it as OP as the global audience does, because tier 1 to tier 2 is a massive leap, you know. But one thing for sure is I've seen greatsword spears, they're very consistent, given that even that they will nerf the spear and that the spear daggers will get hit, the GS spear will still be there because of the fact that it can hit a lot of high hit thresholds that can render melee evasion builds useless. There are GS spear builds that can reach 4,000 hit and basically say fuck you to your evasion. Like if you're running melee evasion and you meet a guy with GS spear and he plays triple endurance, so he can still stack a lot of all 3 endurances to be tanky, on top of like having 34k HP. Like that's still gonna be decent in Korea compared to like spear dagger, you know, where in global it's just crazy.
Blue,
that's
thoughts?
pretty much yeah.
Okay, so to Joey's point, is greatsword spear is really good. The reason why it's so consistent is because you get a lot of single target damage, and then you don't have to sacrifice as much defensive stats to build those offensive stats, because like, okay, spear alone, with the new mastery, you basically on every engage, because you pop enforcer, right? And then you have the new mastery that changes your nimble step to get more hits. So every engage you have an extra 700 hit, right? And you with greatsword spear, you have so much additional hit from greatsword passive and now spear that you don't have to worry about hit, right? And then you get so much extra hit, heavy attack chance on stun targets, and on top of that you get skill damage boost and extra hit from like your HP, right? It's just stupid how many stats we have. Now, with that being said, okay, Kanon, would you agree that Sienna, the server you're on right now, is probably the most competitive PvP server in Korea with the 2 top alliances?
For sure.
Rank 1 kill rankings is a spear dagger. He when I was on the server, he was like rank 10 or around there, top 10, top 20, and he's been climbing since he just recently, like 3 or 4 days ago, reached rank 1, and he's been holding it. I've been like watching. Every time there's like important fights, I actually like swap over to make sure he's using spear dagger. But I've been watching, and he's been like actually consistently holding rank 1 as a spear dagger user. Almost a week and a half or a week or so post the nerfs. So I think that's like kind of a testament to say that spear dagger isn't completely dead. It just, you have to, I think it's like more like you have to have a good build. You have to kind of understand your limitations now. But if you look at Remnant, who's the rank 1 guy, like it's still very, very viable. I've noticed he switches between AoE versus sometimes he'll have more single target focus, and he'll switch between the two, but it's definitely still viable to the point where you could still be among the top 10 that has 40 crossbow users, staff users, and things like that.
Right.
So I think it's, yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree that like, I don't. Yeah, it's the notion of spear dagger being dead or objectively bad in tier 2. I think that's just completely not true. I mean, bro, you see a lot. Not only that guy, right? It's like I don't think you should ever base. You could base a class's potential, but I think like the overall performance, it is important to also factor in what like a non-god tier player or a top player would do, right? Like just because that's the majority of the people. And dude, you see plenty of spear daggers on that battlefield, and you see multiple in the top 10 kill ranking, right? So like, is it a bad class? I keep telling people no. I just don't think it's as quote unquote broken as people make it out to be in tier 1. But it's, you know, it is very good. I mean, let me ask you guys this. Would you rather have a spear dagger or a staff dagger? 1 DPS slot remains. Do you take the spear dagger or do you take the staff dagger? You have to make a choice. What do you guys take?
Shit.
What do you take?
I think that's hard. I think it depends on the comp, but like if you're just saying just in general.
Yeah, just in general, no context. Yeah. Which, by the way, the fact
if I'm in Korea, I take a staff.
Okay, what about you, Joey?
100%. If it's not a spear GS, I'll take the staff.
Okay, so there you go. So like, I think that's a great representation of where staff is. You guys both chose staff. But you're also kind of like, you know, it's like, well, the little which means that spear is still, you know, that spear dagger, that spear, it's obviously still good. You know, it's in that discussion. It wasn't just of course, staff. Are you kidding me? You know what I mean? It wasn't that. So I think spear is still good, but I think I'm actually really surprised that the nerf to spear came the way it did, because there's 0 people complaining about spear on KR. And
thanks, AGS.
You know, like I think regardless of whether or not I think that was a good nerf or bad nerf, I'm surprised that the nerf came in. That's you know, because generally with all these KR games, the balance is always based off of the KR servers when it comes to KR games, right? Like I feel like that's pretty true with most games. BDO, you know, generally speaking, that is. That nerf came in. And let me tell you, no one complains about spear being OP in tier 2. Am I wrong? Tell me. Like, would you guys agree with that?
No.
No one complains.
No one complains, bro.
I want to say, do you think global tier 2, we're still gonna see a huge, like, just a lot of spears? Do you think that it's gonna be different in that regard? Do you think people are still gonna bitch and complain about spear? Like, what do you expect to see in global?
I think that it's going to come down to the top guilds. I think that for like, I know some guilds that are like theory crafting and still expecting to do well with spear. And then I know some guilds that are just doom and gloom. And so it's going to come down to which guilds end up being the top guild in the servers. But I think that we'll still see some spears. We'll see a drop off because of how good staff is. But I think as people change their traits, as people change their traits and like have more like specific damage type defensive focused builds, like if they start to build like a lot more magic evasions, they say fuck triple evasion, I'm gonna go range magic evasion, then all of a sudden we might like see like an increase in spears again, and then it's just gonna go back and forth.
Right. So the last question before we move on to the tier list segment, which I know a lot of people are looking forward to. What? Oh shit! I lost my train of thought. Jesus, what was it? Oh my gosh, I lost it. I just had it. Hold on. I wanted to ask this before we moved on. What was it? Shit. Okay, well, maybe it'll come to me. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about? Or you want to bring up before we move on to the tier list segment? What the hell was it?
Yeah, I have a question for you guys. Is there any weapon combination that you think might become? We might have talked about this before. Any weapon combination you guys see becoming potentially meta?
Ooh, good question.
On global that isn't already global, like meta in Korea.
So the Lulu bow just got hit, and with SNS. Little
Okay, little fatty.
Okay, little fatty, bro.
No. In all seriousness, I think a lot of it depends on what happens with the defense thresholds. That's actually a really good question. I need to actually think about that. Is there any class that isn't like meta that I could see coming into meta? I mean, you know, obviously SNS Expo wasn't meta, that became a little bit more meta.
Mark my words. Bow spear.
Bow spear.
Yeah,
Okay.
dude's throwing spear from max range.
Okay, here's one. I think. Now I don't know. I'm not a wand user, but I know the global
Staff
audience.
wand.
I think people are going to
Staff
try
wand.
to make DPS wand dagger work. I think DPS wand builds. I think they're going to try and make it work, and they might figure it out. And I hope they do, because that would be cool to see. I haven't seen it work yet, but I think if there's one that's going to be more where all of a sudden this class, we see a lot of them because they actually do well, because someone figures something out through the mastery tree. I think it might be something related to a DPS wand. I could be wrong though, because I'm not a wand guy. So that's like I know very little about wand. That's the one class I never looked into because I'm not Harry motherfucking Potter. Okay, so I don't give a fuck about wand, but I want Harry Potter's on my team in my parties, But yeah.
Hey, shout out Rylock, shout out Nymphelas. They are some beast wand daggers that have been playing wand dagger since global launch in Ethereum. They like, dude, okay, I kid you not. If I had $1 every time we're in a fight and then you just hear Rylock, okay, I can go for a sleep here. I got to sleep here. Dude, I'd have 5 cordies already. Like I know like a lot of people were like, oh well, sleeping is kind of like a one-trick pony that doesn't really work, or it won't work in other regions, or some people in EU were saying like, oh, sleeping doesn't really work because you sleep and then you tornado them and they get CC capped. But honestly, a coordinated guild with sleeps is monstrous, especially with the change with how much more damage we're getting in this game now. Like that sleep can lead to so much. And then also, okay, I know some people in Goblin are going to get mad at me because I know that they've been trying to they think that they think this is a secret, but it's not. Tevit wand is fucking broken with the new masteries. It's cracked, insane. You can go DPS SNS wand, DPS staff wand, DPS wand dagger. I'm sure that they already have like Rylock and Nim has probably already cooked some builds up. So I 100% agree that we're going to see more wands. Wand daggers and just wands in general.
That's a good point. I
can see it, bro.
I say this every time I go through the marketplace in NA, and I'm still just shocked how cheap Tevit wand is. I'm just like, bro, like even before mastery, SNS wand with a Tevit wand would one-shot people. Like even before all of this DPS, like it was already strong to begin with, and he just got stronger. And I'm just like, I don't know, maybe the price goes up now after this, but I've always been shocked with how cheap that fucking weapon has been on the auction house, and I just could never figure out why.
Hey, for all you whales that want to make even more money in the game, go stock up on some.
I'm thinking about buying one to flip, maybe. I don't know.
Bro,
did you see the Tevin dagger price in Korea? At one point it was before the new masteries. Because people every day would ask me, at one point it was down to like 50 or so K. And now it's like almost double the price again.
Sorry, just have to.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Definitely, sorry. I think Tevin wand is going to be. I definitely agree with that. I think, honestly, we might see some more crossbow wands too, because like Bellendir crossbow, Tevin wand, small scale is actually a beast. And then, okay, I call it the selfish healer build, but there is a couple of people running crossbow wand as a healer, and they're using the frost Mother Nature's protest to like pretty much slow people a lot, slow people. But I'm gonna keep it a buck. Every single crossbow wand healer I've seen so far in Korea, at least, mostly use a lot of those heals on themselves, or are constantly kiting people, and they're not really doing much damage. But I think we'll probably see someone like Eli, maybe Rylock. For those of you guys who don't know, Eli is a really, really good healer on in NA East. But we'll probably see some kind of like cooked up build with that. Maybe some more Greatsword wands, because I mean, so there's 50k HP pocket healer that's just like.
I think Greatsword wands. I think we might see some more Greatsword wands. I also think that we will see. I think we could also. I think we could potentially also see Expo bows start to come in, just because of the amount of damage. I think the one thing that holds Expo bow back the most, though, because you can kite to a certain degree, right? You've got a couple nimble charges, you've got a stun break, and you also have a knockback that you could use if you're trading into it, right? With whirlwind, like if you have the little whirlpool that spawns, you use Zephyr's knock that synergizes if you take the skill spec to knock back the target to create more space. While you know, with the new masteries that have come in, it can deal some serious damage. You get even more damage for even healing yourself, and you have self sustain because of how much you're healing with your Nature's Blessing and your heal abilities from bow. But I think the biggest thing that holds Expo bow back from, and I want to see how this plays out, is the amount of ranged defenses there are in the game. Every class is going to have either a ton of ranged endurance or a ton of ranged evasion. And like, it just, yeah, I feel like that's the big hurdle that it's got to kind of push through if it can. But I think that'll be something where, like Blue said, we're already seeing a couple of people. I've seen like I've seen like maybe 2 people run it already, which will be interesting to see in global. And yeah, I think Greatsword Wand is another one that could definitely, especially in like a flex team. Yeah. What about you, Joey?
Regarding Greatsword Wand?
No, just like any off meta classes that you think could be potentially become meta for tier 2 for us in global.
Aside from, like you mentioned, the scout, I'm also looking at towards like the bow and spear, because you still have the spear. You still have that.
Oh, that's right. You said bow spear. Yeah, sorry.
Skills, the explosive, yeah, the bow spear. You got the explosive fury, and then you can throw that javelin. And if you build yourself max range, then obviously you can throw those spears as far as you can. The only downside with bow spear that I've seen in tier 1 was mana. You need a lot of milk. Yeah, you need to drink a lot of milk. That's the only problem.
Milk.
And yeah, that's it. It's just the mana issues. But in tier 2, I think you can find a way around that by having a little bit more mana regen. But we'll see. Right, we'll see.
All right. So yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Blue. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you.
I was just saying the thing about spear, some people should like be weary of, is that there is no T2 spear that gives you range as an item effect. Like we're all spoiled with heroic spear. So like if you use spear, you definitely have to build towards range if you want to play that similar playstyle. Just more of a keep that in mind, guys, for those of you guys who want to play spear.
So like your goal would be to max out your range, which is 30 meters for your bow, and then you work towards whatever you can do to increase your hit, your endurance, depends on what defensive traits you're gonna take. But usually you pretty much just go endurance. I'm even seeing like a 5-piece vanguard in there,
right,
for a bow spear, because you can get max damage from having that fortitude.
I remember what I was trying to say. For our tier 2, what defensives do you think most people will run in these large scale PvP? Let's just call it even like GVGs, but like full GVGs, right? Like 60v, 60 plus, and large scale like Siege and stuff. What defensives do you think people are going to be building into? So like the options are obviously ranged magic, evasion. You have the triple evasion builds. You have the melee ranged evasion build. And you have the endurance builds, the same equivalent, but endurance as well, right? What do you guys think most DP? Let's just start with DPS. I mean, let's just talk about DPS, because I mean, obviously most tanks, right? Like most DPS, what defensives do you think they are going to be running? Start with you, Blue.
Okay, so I think early on, because we don't have like every artifact and stuff, assuming we don't get it all at once, early on we'll probably see more range magic defenses, like kind of how we do now. Maybe some triple evasion, because staff does get victorious energy to help you with that. And then later, and then I think we'll see some endurance as well. But the thing is, like if I remember correctly, a lot of like the really good endurance pieces aren't easily obtainable right away unless you like really grind if you've been saving your weekly contracts. So I think we might see some endurance, but we'll probably see more range magic evasion. And then as the game progresses, as we unlock more artifacts and get our level 80 runes and all of that stuff, then we'll start to probably see like triple evasion and triple endurance, because it's so valuable to run. Um, I'm curious to see if we have more glass cannon builds, like more damage focused, versus where KR is like way more defensive focused builds.
Mm. But ranged magic, you feel not as much melee. You don't think? Obviously, triple evasion has melee, right? But like when it comes to like double, when it comes to 2-stat defensive builds, especially in the early game, as you're alluding to, what you think it's going to be more ranged magic over melee? You're not going to see much melee.
Probably just because it's way easier to build and still have relatively high damage early on, right? Because some stuff comes from like the later 3-star dungeons and things like that. Whereas you could just like literally get 2-piece Dawn Mist day one instantly, like instant craft, because
it's one of the easiest ones to get.
Yeah, and it's like you get so much extra evasion from that it's like I will probably see like a lot of dagger users use that right away. But
so Spear's back. No, I'm just kidding. Yes, Joey thoughts. Joey thoughts.
Okay, so thinking about it, like with the early tier 2 gears, I know that you can get a lot of hit, man, because of the masteries and all that. But the early tier 2 gears is not really gonna give you that much good stats in terms of like melee evasion. So I can see some melee endurance, range endurance builds out there, and a more tank centric meta. It really depends on your server. So obviously, if your server has already have a lot of melee players and they want to continue playing melee, then you might want to go into that melee ranged defensives. But there are some servers that are heavy on ranged magic, as Blue said, then they will also prefer to go for that ranged magic. Honestly, if your server goes ranged magic, those spears, they'll be good. They'll be good.
Right.
But if they go melee range, it might be difficult.
See, and that's part, not to like bring back an older conversation, but that's part of the reason why I was actually surprised with what they did with Spear, because I mean, that was a huge nerf to a lot of Spear players. I know a lot of good Spear players are like, no, I'll be fine. Yeah, maybe you, but we're talking about the majority. Like, do you think everyone in your 60-man guild is really good or as good as you? I mean, you got a big ass head already saying, oh, it's not going to affect me, right? So if you are as good as you say, then you should know that most people are in your guild aren't as good as you, and that nerf will affect them. I'm talking about like the 30 seconds down to 10 seconds. That will affect a lot of Spear users. It for sure will. Good Spear users can get around it for sure, but like a lot of people are going to be affected by that. And then on top of that, the damage nerfs. I was surprised by that because like, what you're saying with this meta, Joy, is very true. It's like you have staff that's so strong, and bow. If you don't have defenses, bow's very scary. Obviously, it's like if everyone builds into ranged magic, the counter to that, the balance to that is Spear. But then
if everyone builds melee range, then you have the staff.
Up range or staff. Exactly. Like, to me, that kind of made sense from like a meta perspective, which is again why I thought that was really interesting that they nerfed, but. I mean, sorry to get off topic there, but yeah, I think that'll be very interesting to see, especially with how many Spear users. Another factor I think this should be considered is how many Spear users from NA are going into tier 2, right? Like, how many of them are going to want to swap? Even though it's not hard, it is a reset with gear. You could just build out a new tier 2 and then swap your mastery, sure, but I wonder how many people are married to Spear. I feel like there's a certain level of NA EU players that are also like, I'm going to stay with Spear regardless, just because I like it. I like the playstyle because Spear is a fun class to play.
Yep.
I completely forgot about 4-piece Wraith. You can do like 4-piece Wraith with Sacred Vanquisher boots from T2, then you just get so much melee evasion.
That is the melee evasion set early on. Yeah, it's 4-piece
That is
Wraith.
the set.
Yeah, I honestly completely forgot about 4-piece Wraith, because with Spear users doing that, like if Spear users do that too, they get so much heavy attack chance that like, you're not landing as much crits, but you're getting so much heavy attack. And then if you have like a good server, like if you're as a server where you can get some good, a good amount of chests at nighttime, especially now having 3 places to get them from, you can theoretically get that Crimson Carnage Spear in like the first couple days or first week, if it even. And that, the amount of times I've seen people get kills in KR just from like using Explosive Fury. And like Remnant, for example, like the rank 1 guy, a lot of his kills I noticed is coming from like using Explosive Fury. Like with heavy attack, it can do a lot
It
of
hits
damage.
hard, yeah, for sure. It does more
Yeah,
damage
and
Let's
than
not forget, like
yeah.
the
and you
gladiator,
get so much
man.
attack speed.
The gladiator. That class is up close and personal. They don't need to wait 10 seconds to position themselves. They go in. They
Mm,
use their explosive fury, and then they expend their javelin charges. So
Yeah,
the
I
people
mean,
usually affected by the spear nerfs most likely would be the spear daggers, because they need to be
right.
patient. They need to go in.
well,
They need to get an angle. They need to,
I'm gonna keep it a
yeah.
buck. The best spear dagger users aren't like, oh, I need to find a place to throw my things. Like a lot of the best spear dagger users, I mean, shout out Xanto, shout out Protein from Supple. I'm just shouting out people that were in my guilds. A lot of them are able to find those single target kills, lock down somebody real quick, kill them, get stacks, and then go in.
Mhm.
Or go in with things like Phoenix Barrage and things and things like that. And like Crimson Carnage Spear is just gonna help that so much better because you get way more attack speed, way more damage when you're getting your stacks, and getting like way lower cooldown on Phoenix Barrage and things like that.
That
So like
spear's so good. I have a,
Yeah.
Yeah.
if I was playing a spear class and I have a bell spear, I think I would still I think I would actually use I think I would use Crimson, to be perfectly honest. Shoot. I will say this, and then this will be the last thing, and then we'll move on to the tier list segment. But I again, I'm gonna preface this by saying it's a big question mark to see how Spear is doing with our version in global. But I can't say this. As someone that has played a 4-piece melee evasion, range evasion build for tier 2 Talandre with all that, it's painful against magic. Like, it's like there's so many magic users. I could not stay on that set. Now, granted, spear was not a thing back then, but I could not stay on that set because even on Greatsword Dagger with my, I believe I had like 30k HP or something at the time, 30k plus, I would get deleted. Like, dude, like I just
the judgment lightnings.
it's so
remember?
much staff does so much damage so fast. There's so many of them. Dude, like the melee evasion just didn't matter, especially on certain classes where like a Greatsword Dagger, it's like I'm getting in and out anyway, and I'm executing before someone's, a melee user jumps on me anyway. So it was like I had to respec into range magic just because it's like, man, if you go that melee evasion route and you lose that magic defense, it is painful. So that's something to consider. Take that from someone that has actually played a melee evasion, range evasion, 4-piece Wraith build in tier 2 with Talandre. Like that's what I remember. I remember being like, I can't play this in large scale.
Yeah.
I can't. This
Also,
is bad.
like, remember that time was a range and magic meta, bro.
It was,
a
yeah.
mismatch.
That's what I'm
The
saying.
build was for arena.
Yeah.
Like our build was
100%.
for arena. It
We are
wasn't
an
for
arena build.
ZDZ.
For sure. And that's why I'm saying, I'm prefacing that with saying spear was not a thing. So again, it'll be interesting to see what happens with ours, because at the end of the day, if that Wraith set, yeah, you have a weakness with magic, but then everyone else also has a weakness because spear's in the game, then that just makes sense, right? That makes sense that every build has a weakness, as it should. But yeah, if there's nothing else, I think we should maybe jump into the tier list. How are you guys feeling?
I'm good.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so before we do, I'm sorry, boys, but I have to plug this in real quick. Just a really quick. You can mute if you don't want to share it with your stream flip, but just real quick. Guys, my stream today is sponsored by Smackin'. Okay, if you guys want to check out get some sunflower seeds, I've got a pack open right now. I've got a bunch of flavors. This is fantastic, and it's been very good. They sent me a bunch of flavors, and some of these flavors sound amazing. Blue, do you eat sunflower seeds? I don't know if you like sunflower seeds. You look like a sunflower seed enjoyer.
Nah, growing up, I actually used to play a lot of baseball.
Uh-huh.
Sunflower seeds were like religion, but not really anymore. No.
Okay. All right. Well,
Actually, funny
I
enough.
love sunflower seeds, so this was an easy sponsor for me to take. I'm going to try maple brown sugar next, and right now I'm chowing down cinnamon churro, and it's delicious. So if you guys want to check it out, definitely click on that message in my chat that's pinned at the top. You can support your boy. Try these out, but it's pretty good. Snacking on them. Hashtag ad for that little segment. All right, so with that out the way, with that out the way, I'm gonna pull this up here now. All right, I've got the tier list up. I've got to put that up on my thing. I'm gonna grab a couple water real quick, and we're gonna get right into this. All right, be right back. Sorry.
Perfect. I gotta use your restroom.